This afternoon I am cutting some tires for some tire tanks. The first process is actually selecting the right tire, and for this job we're going to be using tires served by rural water and pretty good pressure, so we are using floater tires from fertilizer spreader trucks, the front tires. And as you can tell, these are 48 25 20s, meaning they're 48 inches in diameter on the outside, about 25 inches tall when they're laying down. And for tire tanks we really don't worry about it, but the 20 inches the rim diameter. But our objective today is to cut these tires, and I hope to show you in a little bit the process of cutting. This tire is one that shows kind of how it would be before it's cut, and here is a tire that we have cut. We tend to leave about 5 to 6 inches of sidewall attached to the tire to give added strength. When considering tires, depth, I told you, is one of the things that I am important. Notice here I am measuring from the bottom top side of the bottom bead up to how high water will be, and it appears that the water would be 18 or 19 inches deep. That is, in my world, an ideal depth. If you get a tire that is greater than 24 in this measurement, I think it is too deep and can become a hazard for small cattle. The minimum depth that I want on a tire is about 15. The reason for that is so that there is adequate room for the float that is in the bottom of the tire to operate properly. To do the cutting, I use a reciprocating saw, and I use a coarse blade. Those are just 6-inch blades. I like them very coarse because it takes pretty good material to cut. The other thing is there is differences in reciprocating saws. Some of the less expensive saws have a stroke of 3/4 of an inch long, while some of the better saws have 1 1/8 inches. It may sound like 3/8 of an inch difference, but that makes significant difference when it comes to actually cutting the tire. We're going to use this saw to do it, and in just a second I will put that tire down and we will actually start cutting. When it comes to cutting the tire, I like to use a lubricating fluid on my blade. For this purpose, we use just a spray bottle. This happens to be even just a Windex bottle, and I add about a tablespoon of Dawn dishwashing soap to the mixture to add lubricant. It's similar to the same material you would use to check leaks in tires. Before I start cutting on a tire, I normally check both sidewalls to make sure that it doesn't have a puncture or gouge in a sidewall. If it does, I want to have it as the top side that I will cut out. The bottom has to be secure. And so now I think we're going to get set up and try to cut this tire. Some people actually will use a drill before they start cutting, but for this purpose I have not been using drill for a long time. I can use that blade and start a tire and cut through it. We will be probably trying to cut in about the top portion of the letter here, leaving this portion intact. This will be left as a ring. You can see these other tires that we have cut out. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're going to try this. Like I said, this happens to be a new blade. I don't often use a new blade. Typically I use a used blade. A blade will last me a number of tires. Okay, give me a little spray. This tire has 10 plies, so it is pretty difficult to cut. Some of the more difficult tires I've cut. Oftentimes we will mark a tire with chalk before we start, but it is not necessary as long as you can get a somewhat circular pattern. People discuss pulling on tires, hooking onto them with a skid steer, number of things. It's not necessary. One of the most necessary things is make sure that you are tilted so that as you cut, it falls away from the blade rather than against it. I am cutting at a small angle here. My cord got wrapped around. One of the most important things is that you hold pressure down on the reciprocating saw, letting the blade do the cutting work. look at this, and you can see that it did not destroy the blade. The blade is quite good yet. It'll be used for a number of tires. As you can tell, it doesn't take a long time to cut the tire. This tire is now ready to be dumped because oftentimes there is water and dirt and mud in the bottom of them. I will normally invert them at this point, empty them out, and then set them aside, ready to go to the field for installation. As I said, this is a 48, 25, 20. I've used a number of tires like these that are 48, 31, 20s, and I like them very well.